You have cancer. 3 words that change a life forever. We would like to offer another 3 words. Be an overcomer. Welcome to the 1% Podcast, where our conversations with other cancer warriors, survivors, and caregivers allows us to give you that extra boost you need to face your challenge head on, live life from a new perspective, and forge a path that keeps you moving free and clear. Now, welcome your host and cancer survivor, Truett Taylor.
Welcome to today's episode of the 1% Podcast, the show where we interview young adults who are battling or surviving an unexpected cancer diagnosis. You are not alone, and I promise, by consuming today's content, your soul will be fed with the hope, courage, and inspiration you need to keep fighting for today. I'm excited to be on your journey with you today. If you haven't done so already, be sure to head over to 1%podcast.com to sign up for our email list to see the latest news and updates for all our guests on the show. You can also check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at 1% Podcast. If you want to join in on some of our discussions, please join our Facebook group, the 1% Podcast. To contact me directly for content, questions, or booking events, you can email me at info@1%podcast.com. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another exciting episode of the 1% Podcast. This is episode number 59, and today's guest is Miss Marty DeLoreto. Marty wrote into the 1% Podcast. She and I had a chance to talk, and her story is amazing. I can't wait to share it with you guys today. Marty and I really go into a lot of details about the mental health side of being a cancer survivor. It's one of those topics that I know we talked about a lot on the show, but I feel like we cannot talk about it enough. So our conversation is going to go really in depth into her story and how she's been able to overcome being a cancer survivor, all the steps that she has and the blueprint she takes each day to continue to get better and continue to live her life in a positive way. Before we get started in today's episode, I have some sad news to report. Episode number 25 with Miss Erica Hoffman. I actually went to Erica's funeral this past week. Erica died of stage 4 colon cancer. She had battled for the past several years. She initially started chemo. It started working, and then over time, her chemo stopped working for her. Her cancer spread to her lungs, her liver, and finally into her bones and brain, and unfortunately we lost her this past week. Being at her funeral was probably one of the saddest, but at the same time most beautiful experiences I could say I've had. Just sitting there listening to different people speak about Erica. The room was filled with joy as well as sadness. Sadness from us knowing that we are all going to miss Erica so much. She was such a great person. I go back and listen to her interview, and not everyone really knows this, but we do a face-to-face recording as well too. Lots of times when we talk, and I can go back and look at my video with Erica and see her, and see how full of joy and life she was. And this is a common trait I see with a lot of people that I speak with, that even though they have so much going on and their life has potential of being a lot shorter than a normal person, I would say, the people that I speak with, and Erica is a prime example of this. You can go back and listen to her interview. She's so full of joy and so full of hope. Not that she's going to be completely cancer-free and never have to worry about cancer again, even though that is a huge hope that we've all had. But her hope and her faith really just in her life and, in her Christian walk, in her family, in her husband, was so strong and powerful. And I see that, and I had those types of conversations with people all the time. And, at her funeral, so if you don't know, if you haven't listened to the interview yet, Erica's mother passed away with breast cancer not too long before she was diagnosed with cancer. And currently, Erica's father is battling pancreatic cancer as well. So here you have, a mother, a father, a daughter, and she has another sibling who doesn't have cancer. But, so much cancer in her family, and so many, bad outcomes that have happened or currently have happened. I often think about just her sister, and her sister actually spoke at the funeral, and I listened to her talk about Erica and her family and her life. And, my heart went out to her knowing that, so many people have been affected by cancer, and, the type of burden she, carries, knowing that she's lost her mother and her sister, and her father's, battling pancreatic cancer right now. I just ask everyone to really, pray for her sister. And if anybody wants information to connect with her, you can reach out to me personally, and I can send some information over to her and Erica's husband as well too. So at Erica's funeral, her father spoke first, then her sister, and then her husband spoke. And being a husband myself, I put myself in the position of him and just listened to him speak about his wife and how they met and the things that he was able to overcome in his life because of Erica. And I just thought about how strong community is for every person. And that's one of my goals for this podcast, is to really develop a community where we can all lean on each other, because life's not meant to be tackled alone. And when we try to take on too much, we get overwhelmed, and anxiety just really piles onto our life. And we tend to just get so depressed sometimes and so hopeless. But the positivity of having a great community around you, even if they're just there to listen, even if they're just there to put their arm on your shoulder, or if you have the people that really want to get in the trenches with you, I just ask everyone listening, take a time to, look around the people in your life and first be gracious for all the wonderful people we have in our lives, but also let them in a little bit. And sometimes it's up to you to take the first step to really open up to people. So that's my challenge out to everyone today. And that's one thing I learned from Erica when we spoke, is you just got to have, faith in humanity that people are going to do the right things, and people are there to help you. I know it's really easy to see all the things that are negative on the news and things of our nation and all the craziness that's going on right now. But in our hearts, we have a strong desire to want to be a part of a community and to want to help other people. So that's my challenge, everyone, today. I think about Eric and I's conversation, and this was off the recording, but Erica was a phenomenal singer. You can go on YouTube and look up her videos that she had and her performances that she had, and it's amazing. And Erica was in the process of actually teaching me how to sing, and if you've been around me, I'm a horrible singer. It could not be worse. She made a little dent in that, but overall, Erica was just such a phenomenal person who would do absolutely anything for anyone at any time. And there just needs to be more people out there like Erica that are actually making the effort to help other people. She was so sick, and she couldn't do much for herself. And as her body began to fail, they just told stories of her helping so many other people, even as she was dying, and knew that she was dying unless there was a miracle that was going to come in her life. But even if the miracle didn't come, she was going to just try her best to reach out to so many people to help people along in their journey as well too. So Erica, just knowing you for the time that I did and knowing your family, I just, I miss you a ton, and your husband and your father and your sister and all the people that loved you. Everyone just tremendously misses you. And, as you being a part of this podcast, you made the podcast better, and Erica's stories like Erica's make the podcast better. So again, I just ask everyone to just rally around her family. If you have anything that you want to do for them, or any kind of messages you want me to send to them, feel free to just email me at info@1percentpodcast.com. So to switch gears into Marty's story, Marty is amazing. Marty's super cool. She kept emailing me about being on the show, which I absolutely loved. I love her passion for wanting to tell her story. You guys are going to get a great glimpse into who she is, the type of life that she has, all the things that she's done to really try to lower the anxiety levels of, worrying about cancer coming back and just worrying about how to deal with all the side effects from going through treatment, and you're just trying to be a normal person per se again after the cancer diagnosis and after all the treatment's over with and stuff. So you guys enjoy my interview with Marty, and be sure to invite your family, your friends, and all the cancer warriors and survivors, caregivers you know out there to subscribe and listen to the podcast as well. All right, welcome back to the 1% Podcast. Today on the show, we have Marty DeLoreto. Marty, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
Great. Love that you're on the show today. We've chatted a couple of times. I know we've exchanged some emails about your story and why you want to tell your story, which I think you have a great message. And I'm so excited for all of our listeners to really be able to hear your story and get to know you today. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and get everyone familiar with who you are?
Sure, absolutely. So I live outside Massachusetts. I'm 45 years old. I work in graphic design and video production. Have 2 kids, 2 teenagers, and been married about 20 years. Nice.
So we were just talking about Boston, the weather in Boston, how it's just now finally getting hot over the past couple of weeks and stuff. So, man, the climate up there, it's really, I love it. Boston's one of the most beautiful places that I've been in, and just the rich history and everything. I have several good friends up there, several friends that I've actually interviewed on the show here that live up in the Boston area, and I'll be up there in September. So if I'm coming up in September, what kind of weather should I expect?
You know what? It's New England. It'll either be boiling hot or freezing cold. Hopefully somewhere in the middle, and leaves are maybe just starting to turn.
Gotcha. So don't pack my bags until like the night before, huh?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, let's tell everyone a little bit about your cancer diagnosis. So when you were 43 years old, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. Tell us a little bit about your diagnosis.
Sure. So I was diagnosed as triple positive, invasive ductal carcinoma stage 2B, which is basically, it's gone in, it's hanging out. It's gone into a lymph node, and it's aggressive. It was a very aggressive form of cancer. Yeah.
I'm sure it's something you weren't expecting, right?
No, not at all. It was just it was a random thing that I actually found it. My husband hugged me and it hurt. And I was like, that's odd, and felt a pebble. And it was a Friday night before a long weekend. It was the longest weekend trying to figure out, what do I do? And I knew it was cancer. Yeah. I just knew. I had no reason to think it was, but I just knew.
So I know you have a page on Facebook called Rose Gold Glow, where you share your story and you share all the information about your journey. Why do you feel like it's important for you to be able to share your story with all of our listeners today?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where when you're not expecting this at all, and you have your life and you're living it and you're just sort of, going along, all of a sudden something like this hits you, and the way it hits you mentally is something that I didn't feel like was really being very well addressed during my treatment, and I wasn't really prepared for what treatment after was going to be like. So I think kind of my mental health journey, and hopefully trying to kind of give others the heads up on it is why I think it might be important.
Yeah, there's no blueprint lots of times, when you're diagnosed, because it all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. You weren't getting prepared to do this, so you had to just kind of hit it where you were. And I love the fact that when people go through certain circumstances like this, after the fact, they really want to give people, like I said, more of the blueprint of, if it happens to you, here's what to expect. Here's what my situation was like. Why do you feel like it's important for you to give back? I know you mentioned the mental health side of everything. Why do you feel like it's important for you to really give people that roadmap to help navigate them through their cancer journey?
You lose such complete control. It feels like you lose such complete control over what's happening in your life that you want to grasp that control as much as possible during and after. And one of the ways that I feel like I can kind of control things is sharing the information that I've learned. Whatever the resources are, the, thoughts and things that have happened to me. If somebody else, I was very fortunate. I have a friend who was diagnosed about 2 years before me with the exact same type of cancer. And it was incredible to have her as a resource to talk to. But when it's done, you're sent off with kind of a pill, and we'll check in with you in 2 months.
Right.
And then we'll keep sort of checking on you and doing your lab work, but you're just sort of left out there floating. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. It's just such a horrible feeling that
Yeah.
it feels like if I can do anything to help somebody else, it'll feel like this was all kind of, it happened for a reason.
Yeah, we're really going to dig into that too. I think that's such an important topic. So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about Marty before she was diagnosed with cancer. What was your life like prior to your cancer diagnosis?
Very, very basic. Like I said, I've got 2 teenagers. I got a boy and a girl. I work full time. I've worked full time my whole life. I wasn't, truly the best in terms of, kind of fitness and nutrition. I dabbled in occasionally going to a gym or doing Weight Watchers, but it's like hard to stick to anything because I was always like, oh, my career is in the way, or I've got kid stuff. And I was just sort of, motoring through life. I have an amazing family. I have a sister and my parents are still with us and grew up incredibly close to them. And they were a huge part of me getting through all of this. But, really, there's nothing super remarkable, about life. It was just going along. Everything was fine. I have had experience with something not at all like cancer, but was diagnosed with a gastrointestinal illness when I was 16, a chronic condition. So that's been a huge part of my life all the way through, is sort of managing that and dealing with it. And I've always been the kind of person who doesn't shy away from random adventures or doing things that are probably pretty stupid because I'm very clumsy. But I'm a firm believer in trying anything once, and now even more so, but that's kind of always been my personality.
Yeah. So you said life was pretty basic. You had everything going on, your kids, your family and stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you have any specific goals or anything like that you were working towards? I know you've been full-time with the graphic design production work for a while. Is there anything specific that you were looking towards?
Yeah, honestly, I've had, kind of ups and downs and bumps with mental health with my kids. So trying to get them to a place where I felt like they were going to be okay. And I mean, truly, I always have wanted to kind of fast forward and see that they're fine, like see them as adults and know that they're going to be all right. So getting my kids to the point where they're all right, and then getting, hopefully my husband and I to a place where things calm down a little bit. Maybe we get some travel in. I've always wanted to, see a bunch of different places. So traveling and just getting some more adventure in life.
Yeah. So tell us about that day that you were diagnosed. What kind of specific details do you remember? You said you hugged your husband and it kind of hurt a little bit. Then you had this long weekend to think about all of that, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you first found out you were diagnosed with cancer, tell us about that day. What did that look like?
It's interesting because I don't remember a lot about it. I had to ask my family, what happened, because in my head, I felt like I was in the office at home and I got that call, but it turns out that was a call about something else related to it. But I was actually in the car in the parking lot of the mall with my daughter, who was 12 at the time. And they called me. It was earlier than expected. I was supposed to find out that afternoon. They called me at like 10, and it was on the speakerphone in my car. I don't remember what they told me. I don't remember what happened right before that. And I don't remember what happened for the days after that. I think I just blocked it out. I was just so stunned. Mm-hmm. I knew it was going to be cancer, but to hear it, I don't think they ever said you have cancer. I think what they said to me was you have invasive ductal carcinoma. And I was like, what? Like, I mean, just, you realize that you may have cancer, but when they tell you, here's your stage, here's the type, and it's really aggressive and all of those things, it's terrifying. And I think just in my head, I tried to block it out just to sort of not, have to actually deal with it. Mm-hmm. I remember what happened. That was a Friday. I remember what happened on Tuesday when I started like having the doctor's appointments and starting to see people. But I think I just was in shock, just a total state of shock, and blocked it out.
Yeah, that's definitely, I hear that a lot when a lot of people get that news. It's like, you can't believe it. I was kind of the same way. It's like, you have to let it really sink in and really process it. Once it sunk in and once you begin to process the information, when you started going to all of your doctor's appointments, and that's when it really becomes real. People start getting almost really invasive into your health, right?
Yeah.
When did you start emotionally dealing with the fact that you had cancer?
very late, very late. It was 2 weeks from when they told me to when I started chemo. So it was just a rush of, appointments and getting the port put in. And, all of a sudden you're just there and you're hooked up. And I was like, okay, whatever. After chemo, I started to sort of feel this weird sense of grief. I felt it again after radiation. And then I really felt it I should back up. I had chemo, then I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction, then I had radiation. After that, in the fall of 2018 is when I think started to accept it and process it. I was just moving so quickly through all the different stages of treatment, dealing with all the side effects. I don't think I let myself deal with it mentally and really kind of understand all of it and accept it and realize this is my life right now. This is what I need to go through.
I've talked to a lot of psychiatrists about this situation. So what I've been told was that we, our brains, like one of our natural brain's instincts is to survive, right? And so whenever we're going through difficult situations like this, sometimes we don't fully feel and understand everything that we're going through. We're just looking to survive that moment and get to the next moment.
Yeah.
And it's the brain's such a tricky, powerful thing. And so if it's pushing us all the way to the end, when we get through everything, then it's like it goes back and reflects just a little bit at a time on each situation, which that can be the most difficult part lots of times, where you go back and you're like, man, this really happened to me and all these things. You mentioned you had a double mastectomy as well too. Like obviously from a identity standpoint, that's got to be a huge challenge as well too. A lot of the females that I've spoken to about that, obviously, breasts are part of your identity as a female, right? And all of a sudden they're gone. How did you deal with that situation? Was it something did it happen so fast you kind of didn't know what was going on? Did you have reconstruction at the same time, or what was that situation like for you?
Yeah, it wasn't. At the time when I, made the decision so it was in the left breast, and it had metastasized to at least one lymph node. So I knew I had to left done, had to have lymph nodes removed. I decided to have both done just for peace of mind, even though everyone told me, it's no scientific reason to think it's ever going to show up there. I was like, forget it, just get rid of it. And that was my thought process, was just get them out, get it out. I just want this thing out of me. So I didn't think about identity in any shape, way, or form at the time. I did a reconstruction right away. I was lucky. I didn't need to go through the whole expander process. Afterwards, they don't look like what your breasts look like. I mean, I have implants, and, you move around like in any sort of funky way, and they're going to like move and, kind of get concave and get weird with you. And I went through a period just about maybe 5 months ago where I was just hell-bent on getting them out. I didn't even want the implants, because in my mind, anything that could potentially have, an adverse effect, anything in my body that was, going to feed cancer in any way had to be gone. And I had to go through, kind of a bit of a journey there, talking to the doctors about, if you get them out and you go flat, you really can't go back. And do you want to look at yourself 6 months or a year from now and go, why did I do that? Because you're making somewhat of a rash emotional decision. So I did decide to keep them for the time being and give myself a chance to just sort of heal from the whole experience before I start making any other decisions. And I just didn't want to deal with another surgery either. I was just so done. But yeah, it was, at the time, I didn't really process it. And again, it was one of those things where later I started to really think about it.
Yeah. What do you feel like cancer does to your self-image? I talked to a lot of people about this. Obviously, you didn't give yourself cancer. There's nothing you ate or were exposed to or anything along those lines. What do you feel like cancer does or has done to your self-image?
It's interesting. If you just look at, the just straight on physical aspects of it, I lost about 40 pounds through the process. I was incredibly sick from chemo, and, it shrunk me down, and I got swollen. My face, swelled up and was puffy from treatment. I was bald. I just looked hideous. And when you're already knocked down from the whole experience, and then you look in the mirror, you're like, wow, what's going on? And, this is just a disaster. This is just taking away everything that, from the physical side looks like me.
Mm-hmm.
Now my hair is growing back and it's coming in incredibly curly, and it was never curly. It came in black, and my hair has always been kind of a light brown.
Okay.
So I look at myself in the mirror and I don't look like me. I still don't look like me. And I hate that just cancer. It changes you so much on the inside, but on the outside too, it just strips you of, what everybody's used to seeing for a while. I don't know if my hair is ever going to grow back the same way. My eyelashes are not at all the same as they used to be. Obviously, my breasts don't look the same. I'm covered in scars from all, from surgeries and ports and all those sorts of things. Your body just is a train wreck on the outside and on the inside. So it takes a toll on you, but you also have to look at, all of the scars as battle wounds at the same time. You earned those battle wounds, and those are just part of the fight that you have to go through.
Yeah. I heard someone say that scars are just a reminder that, what tried to take you out didn't have enough strength to do that. So when you had your treatment, when you started going through your treatment cycle, can you describe that to us a little bit? What did that look like? You said you started off with chemo, then you had mastectomy, then you had radiation, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I also had my ovaries removed. And I went through antibody infusions for a year, every 3 weeks. So it basically started the chemo. I had 6 rounds of chemo. At the same time, I was also doing the antibody infusions. After chemo, antibody continued on every 3 weeks for a year. About a month or so after chemo ended, had the double mastectomy. About a month after that, did 6 weeks of daily radiation. And then about a month later, had the ovaries removed. Treatment was a disaster. It was just a disaster. I mean, it was one of those things where it felt like every weird side effect that they go, nobody really gets that, although we've heard of it. I got it. So it was a wicked challenge all the way through. But it, when it started, it was just, like I said, it happened all so fast. With chemo, I just was sort of thrown into it, and one day found myself sitting in a chair. The first day was awful because I had had the port put in the day before, and I didn't want them to use it yet because it was still, pretty raw. So I said, just do an IV in my hand. And a little bit of chemo somehow got out, and I had a 3rd-degree chemical burn on my hand from the chemo. And I looked at that thing, every day for like 2 to 3 months before it finally cleared up. And that was just constantly in my face as a reminder of what was going on. It was not a good time.
Yeah. Throughout all of your moments with your cancer, from when you found out to during the treatment to after, what would you describe as your lowest moment?
I think it was that period when I had finished chemo, surgery, and radiation in the fall and started to process it.
Mm-hmm.
I do have anxiety. I've had it. I was diagnosed 20 years ago with it. I've always, taken some level of medication or been in some kind of therapy. I did not go to therapy at all during my treatment, during the main portion of my treatment. I was just so in it that it didn't occur to me to stop and care for, the mental health side of myself. I was in the deepest depression I've ever known. And, I sought out help from the cancer center that I went to has a psychiatrist on staff. I, went to him maybe 2 or 3 times, and, he explained that, you're in depression. You're in like just a kind of a circumstantial depression. I'm a victim of what's going on all around me. And I did start therapy again. I did finally call my psychiatrist and say, by the way, I've had cancer for like 8 months, just so you know, and maybe we need to talk and adjust some things. And it was just a hole. I just felt like I was in just the deepest, darkest hole. And, even though I had all these physical things happening around me, I could power through those. My body was going to heal. I was taking care of myself as best I could. Those wounds were going to heal. The wounds inside were enormous. And that complete and utter loss of control that I felt was just so overwhelming. By far the lowest point.
So you start talking to your psychologist again.
Yep.
And what kind of recommendations were you given? How did they help you through the process?
Yeah, I mean, therapy absolutely was recommended. I needed to get it out. I needed to talk about all of this, and I needed to, share with someone that this loss of control was so overwhelming to me. I'm a very type A personality, and I'm very organized and very list driven. And having all of this kind of taken away from me, and this stupid thing, this cancer was just ruling everything about my life. I needed to get angry. I needed to cry. I needed to talk all of that out. I did adjust medication that I was taking. I was on Klonopin prior to my diagnosis as needed, but then I was on so much Ativan to manage my nausea that I couldn't really take anything to help with the anxiety or the depression. So I was kind of floating alone, trying to just manage it in my own head. So therapy was the big thing, standing by, been on medication until I was done with everything. So it was, it's a little bit left to just getting yourself to talk, just talking to someone about it. And it wasn't someone who knew cancer very well. I mean, she knew it. She was a great therapist. It was fine. But it's such a particular little area that if you have anybody who has any kind of clue about chronic illness or, something like this, that was really key, was being able to talk to some degree to the psychiatrist at the cancer center, once in a while, just someone who can flat out handle the disease aspect of the depression.
Do you still go to therapy sessions now?
I'm a little behind, but I did continue for a while after treatment.
So going to therapy, having a chance to talk it out, having a chance to really process all the emotions. That's the big thing about therapy, right?
Absolutely.
You're having a chance to actually process you're going back to all this data that you've stored up in your head and exposing ideas. And it's like a brand new wound that you're opening up lots of times, and it really has to open up and air out and heal and everything. What would you say would be like the top 2 benefits of someone, seeing a mental health professional, either during or after their cancer diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think is number one, going to a therapist right away. I think it's the first thing that I would tell somebody is you immediately need to see someone who can talk to you about the mental health side of things, and look at it as seriously as you do your physical health. I mean, it's as important, if not more so, because if you're not 100% squared away on the mental aspect of it and how you're processing it, your body is not going to fight as hard either. You have to have that capacity and that drive to want to fight. Mm-hmm. And if you kind of, get sink down into that hole, it's difficult to get out of it. And it's not going to be, you're not going to push yourself quite as hard. So number one would be you have to talk to someone right away, because that's going to help you be able to process it, fight it, know that these things that you're feeling, know these emotions that you're having are so normal, so normal. One of the biggest things I felt was grief after each stage of treatment ended, because I didn't know, I felt like I had no control at that point over the fight. Like there was something actively happening when I was in chemo and actively happening for surgery. Mm-hmm. When that goes away, you feel so kind of lost and helpless, that understanding that grief over that and fear is so normal. So number one, being able to talk to someone about that and addressing it right away is so critical. The second thing would be, really embracing the fact that you sometimes may feel almost that you don't have the right to be as upset as you are about your situation. Yeah. Like I would look at other people who are going through cancer and think, I don't have it as bad as they do. I went through hell, but, even now I look back and say, well, there are people who are still fighting. I was very lucky to go through what was, the recommended treatment, and I'm in remission, done. Knock on wood, it's going to stay that way. But others who are fighting for years and years and years, the guilt that you feel as well, it's almost a survivor's guilt, is okay. And being able to talk to someone and have them tell you that is so huge. And being able to recognize that you had your fight, and your fight is so valid, and your guilt is so valid, and you have to give yourself the credit you deserve for going through the fight that you did and coming out the way you did, and not feel guilt about it.
It sounds like to me that you were acknowledged a lot, from all your feelings were being acknowledged, that they were normal and okay to feel. I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is something that you almost feel bad for feeling bad sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
you get into these moments where you wonder if what you're feeling is normal. Is it what everyone else feels? And you, again, once you finish that final treatment, you ring the bell, you do all the things that you do or whatever you do, and then I'll see you in 6 months. And so for the next 6 months, it's like, well, how do I put my life together? And there's all sorts of words people call, your new life and all these other things after treatment and everything. Everyone has a different phrase for that. Some people love the phrase, some people hate the phrase. And it's just how you deal with it. Everyone, I always feel like there's a different recipe for success for everyone. So, you take what you have and then what you need, and then you combine that together, and then that's how you become successful. So, it's not like you needed, some acknowledgement on your feelings and as you process things, and, really, because you, like you said, you felt things later than some people immediately go right into those feelings and stuff. So I love the fact that you sought out, you had the strength and the energy. Does someone encourage you to seek out professional help, or is that something that you decided to do on your own?
A bit of both. I did have tremendous support and acknowledgement from family. That was the biggest thing. And I did have, the doctors saying, it would probably be a good idea for you to talk to someone. And it, in my head, I knew I was so low, and I knew I was having such difficulty with it that I had to find a way out. And the only way I knew was get back into therapy and, talk to somebody about it, because it was too important for me to get back to being there for my family, being there for my children. And I had to fight that. I had to fight the dark pit that I was in as hard as I fought the cancer. And I had to do it for them. And that was my biggest motivator.
Bring that up because I think it's really important for us to, I'm big on bearing each other's burdens. So people that are close to you recognize those signs, recognize, hey, she probably needs a little extra help in this, and then have enough courage to tell you. That's a hard thing to tell someone. Hey, have you thought about this? Because sometimes we immediately think that, well, does everyone think I'm crazy because, I'm trying to deal with cancer, obviously, right? So that people that get in the trenches with you, I feel like are really important, because sometimes people, your friends, you may lose a friend or two when you go through situations like this, which is weird. But that's another topic we'll talk about later. But, but people that really actually get in the trenches with you and are right there with you and can help nudge you towards things that'll really help you, I think are so valuable. If you had to describe your relationship with your children, how it's different between before you had cancer and it is now, what would you say?
There's a few ways it's different. Like I kind of said earlier, we just were sort of, skating by through life. It was, mom's nagging, the kids are not doing what they're supposed to do, but, they're off to school, they're doing their activities, everything is whatever. Now it's a bit more of recognizing that mom is human, and mom went through, hell, and their perspective on things and their empathy for people, I think, has changed. I hope it's changed. I hope it will continue to guide them in life. And, I don't pull the cancer card. I tried really hard not to pull the cancer card with them during treatment. And now it is a bit of, trying to explain to them that there's a reason mom's, slowing down a little bit, and mom is, still tired and is still trying to, get through this. And it's going to take a while. And I really think the part of them starts seeing me as human and not, you always see your parents as superheroes in a way, nothing bothers them. They seem to know the answer to everything, and realizing that, no, I don't have the answer to everything. And I couldn't control this. And, going forward, we all have to be a little more cognizant of our health, of our strength, of our, talking and communicating with each other.
I love that. What piece of advice would you give to a young adult who's listening right now, who maybe there's a female out there who just got diagnosed with, triple positive stage 2 breast cancer? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It will be hard. It will be literally the fight of your life. You will feel at times that there is absolutely no way you're going to get through it. And it will be completely and utterly overwhelming to you. but you will come out the other side with a perspective that you could never imagine that you would have had. The air will smell sweeter. The sky will be bluer. Kids laughing will make you smile. The things that you just sort of took for granted, it sounds so hokey and so cliche, but they become so important. And I think that perspective that you come out with on the other side is the reason you go through this. It is a trial, but it is something that will make you a better person. It really and truly will. And you will feel this incredible ball or fire inside you that you will want to help other people. You will want to live. You will want to try things that you never tried before. And you will truly take, every day as a gift. All the things that you hear and all like the, hokey movies and stuff about it, it rings true. It really and truly does. But the biggest thing is, ask for help. I think the important thing too is that the caregivers of those who've been diagnosed, they need to ask for help for that person. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in it, you don't think of asking for help. You don't want, I didn't want any help. You feel horrible asking for it because you're just not used to that. But you also get so deep into it that you don't even realize the things that you need help with. And I think it needs to be on the caregiver to realize, they probably need help with this. I need to go find resources for them. Because all the resources I've found for the most part have been after the fact. And I'm like, geez, I wish I knew about that. So I think it's both that message of you'll be okay, you'll have this incredible perspective, but also on the caregiver, when you get that diagnosis, immediately start looking for help for them for different things.
I love that. One question I also ask everyone is, what do you feel like the best thing cancer has done for your life? It's a different perspective, the way to look at things once you're on the opposite side of it. So if you had to tell us one or two things that, what is the best thing that cancer's done for Marty as she's on the opposite side of everything now in remission?
I think it's that appreciation for these things that you just never even thought were worth thinking about. I about a week ago was at a baseball game for my son, and I heard these two little girls that were maybe like 8 or 9. One said to the other, "Let's go roll down the hill." And I immediately thought, oh my gosh, rolling down the hill would be so fun right now. And I thought about that idea of just toppling down and feeling the grass and that like anticipation of, oh my God, we're at the end. I hope I don't hit a rock. But that sudden wave inside of me of, I just so want to go do that. And there's no reason why I can't. It's these little things that you're just like, you know what? I want to just go, sit outside and just feel the sun. I just want to do X, Y, Z, and doing it. Because there's no reason not to just live life and enjoy every moment. And I think that ability to slow down and appreciate it is so key and so much, I think, what has happened for me.
So you feel like you slow down and you appreciate life more.
Absolutely.
So true. So many things to be thankful for. I always feel like gratitude is the key to happiness. And if you really stop and think of all the things that you're thankful for and the things that you get to experience, even though you may have had bad situations happen, there's a tremendous amount of things out there that we can be happy and have peace with, just if we start looking for those instead of listening to all the bad things that our minds can tell us sometimes about the situations that we experience. Are there any kind of supplements or products or websites that you feel like helped you along the way that you'd like to recommend to anyone?
Yeah. So I think from a supplement or things that helped you side, I can't speak enough about ginger. Ginger is so critical. Just, eating raw or crystallized ginger or, getting like a juicer and juicing fresh ginger. I struggled with it, just extreme nausea through the entire process. The antibody treatments as well got me as hard as the chemo did. And I lived on ginger. So I would recommend that. A couple, resource sites that I found were really helpful were Cleaning for a Reason, cleaningforareason.org. They give you like 2 free house cleanings, full house cleanings for anyone who's in treatment. And that was just a huge thing to have somebody come out and kind of help me. some local resources in the New England area. There were places I found, and these are all over the country. They will do things like Reiki and massage, craniosacral massage, acupuncture, all of those things. Some of these places will do it for free, but even just seeking those out, acupuncture was tremendous, helping with hot flashes, nausea, and stress. Massage, huge, a little bit difficult after you've had surgery, but prior to surgery, really important. And Reiki. I had Reiki every chemo session. They did it for me at my hospital. Just those things that allow you to kind of calm down a little bit and control your body a little bit were great supplements to traditional medicine.
And you started your own Facebook page as well, too. Let's talk about the Rose Gold Glow page. What's all that about?
So it's a blog for me to kind of get things out. I was told a lot, you should journal. I'm not a journal person. I tried it. It felt fake. It didn't feel right to me. I have a very irreverent sense of humor, and I've tried to use that to kind of get through things. So Rose Gold Glow is a little bit of humor, a little bit of, really serious issues and conversations, and just sharing my journey of what I've been through and hoping that, somebody can maybe get something out of it.
Love it. So if we go on to Facebook and we just type in Rose Gold Glow in the search box, yes, it'll pull up your page.
It will. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll drop a link to that in the show notes. So everyone listening today, you guys can go check out Rose Gold Glow if you're on Facebook. I love the cleaningforareason.org. I hear that a lot about people that I had someone come clean my house whenever I was going through all my treatments. Mm. It's a great friend of mine. But it just really makes, just a clean house makes you feel better anyways.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you didn't have to do it and someone else did it for you because you didn't have enough energy probably, right? So
no. Yeah.
I think there's some great resources for everyone. Marty, I want to take a second to acknowledge you for, just for being on the show, for having the courage to come and tell your story. That's definitely a big part of the process, the healing process, I would say, is for someone to come out and really be vulnerable enough to share their story, to go into the details about mental health. Mental health is not there's people aren't talking about mental health enough. And for me, it always makes such a huge difference to see someone who has experienced the struggle that you may be going through with and has the courage and strength enough to talk about what it is that they've experienced, and just talking about going to a therapist and how they wish they would have went to one earlier, and just all the benefits that come from, seeking out a mental health professional. I think that's great. I think where you're at now, just being, you said 15 months ago, everything kind of
right
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Just being like, less than 2 years out, I'm sure there's still moments where you're still finding things that you're dealing with here and there, and certain triggers will happen, or certain situations will happen where you have to deal with something a little bit more, but you're getting progressively better. And the reason why I ask you if you were still going into therapy and stuff too, is because sometimes we think we're okay when we get to a certain point. Yeah. And then we back off, right? It's like taking antibiotics. When you start feeling better after about 4 days and you quit, it comes back a lot worse.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. But, yeah. I need to get back. Yeah.
But so I think that's a definitely important side of who we are. Our mental health, our physical health, emotional health, spiritual health, financial health, all those things together really make up who we are. And we cannot ignore one area of that, because when situations happen like cancer diagnosis or something traumatic in our life, you kind of you work with what you have. And if you had taken advantage of things in the past and everything else, you have to go back and unlearn that and then relearn how to live your life. And I love asking people what's the best thing cancer's done for you, because it really helps give me a perspective on how much you enjoy life now, and how you just the smell of the grass and the things like that you were describing earlier, how much you really appreciate being who you are. And even the bad experiences you had in life have led you to a greater appreciation for the life that you have. Yeah. And we should all value life. We only have one. A weird way of looking at life is every minute you're alive, you're 1 minute closer to your death is one way to look at it, right? Mm-hmm. Or it's every minute I have to live is another minute I get to live. I get to live, right? So it's an opportunity. And when you take advantage of all the opportunities that you have, which sounds like what you're doing now, you really live a deeper and fuller life. And I don't have any children yet or anything like that, but I know you talked about your kids a lot today as well too. And I feel like those are things that will really stick with your children as well. They saw mom go through this situation. Mom needed help, mom needed this and that. And so that lesson will really pour into your children's life, because you want the best for them. You want them to have a very productive and fruitful life, and you're laying the blueprint for them probably without even knowing it. I'm sure you would love to taught it a different way, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But that's not the way things are sometimes. So the very fact that you're, continuing to work through everything, you're positive, you have enough courage and energy and strength and vulnerability to share your story, I think will really say volumes. That what you do really says more volumes about who you are versus just what you say lots of times. So definitely want to acknowledge you for doing that. I really appreciate that. I appreciate you being consistent with me as far as being on the show as well too. Life gets busy and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you coming on today and being able to share your story.
Thank you very much.
So if people want to connect with you, the best way is to go to Facebook, Rose Gold Glow, or you have an email address out there that you want to give everyone. It's rosegoldglow6@gmail.com. So that's the rosegoldglow, the number 6@gmail.com. Well, for all listeners out there, I hope you feel confident enough to reach out to Marty now that you know her and know her story. You know what she's went through, the ups and downs, all the things based off of her story that may be relatable to you. So I'd love for you to reach out to Marty if you feel like she's a good resource for you, and connect with her. If you feel like her story has been impactful for you, definitely email her and let her know if you have some questions for her. Again, I think she's a great resource for you guys to reach out to. Well, Marty, thank you so much for being on the 1% podcast. I'll keep everyone updated with your journey, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
We appreciate you spending time with us on today's episode and encourage you to continue the conversation to help you keep pushing forward. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as ways to recommend a guest and connect to Truett personally, head over to 1%podcast.com. Be sure to join us next time for more stories of inspiration right here with Truett Taylor on the 1% Podcast.